Unpopular opinion, banning horse slaughter in the United States did not.
I'm really sick and tired when I see people on the internet being like, oh, we need horse slaughter. Oh, it's so humane in the United States. We need to bring it back. That is a bunch of baloney, and I'm here to prove it. When horse slaughter was in the United States, it was not humane, and it did not avoid all the criminal activity that we still see within the horse slaughter pipeline today. We're going to be diving into all of that. But first, we're going to dive into a reaction video that Clint Anderson did on somebody that's like, oh, it's an unnecessary evil, we need to do this. Okay, I've been doing this for over 2 decades. There may be people that are involved with horses, but they have no idea what 20 years of being on the front lines of animal rescue and horse rescue looks like. And I've seen a lot of national organizations bring in people and being like, oh, well, this person's going to run our horse department and they're really good, they know horses. I'm like, they don't know squat when it comes to the reality of what's happening in the horse slaughter pipeline. So we're going to dive in. Before we jump into this, I want to bring out that it is 0.4% of the horse population that's actually going to slaughter. 0.4%. That is not an overpopulation problem. That is just enough for the criminals and the cartels to make it look like they've got a legitimate business front. But it's not. It's literally a Trojan horse.
Banning horse slaughter in the United States did not save horses. And yes, this is a touchy subject. Good intentions don't feed starving horses, they don't fix broken legs.
Broken legs. So that means if a horse breaks its leg, you shouldn't have it humanely euthanized right then. Send it to the slaughter pipeline? Really?
And they don't stop suffering. And I'm not even going to go down the rabbit hole right now about the amount of crazy overbreeding. If you care about horses, you have to care about the reality, not just the feelings.
Okay, I do agree with her here. When you are dealing with horses, you have to not be emotionally wrapped up within situations. I see so many rescues out there. They rescue horses that are not doing well. These horses are suffering. They're in chronic pain and they keep them alive because they don't want to make a euthanasia decision. Horses need to live pain-free, and if it's something we can't fix right away with the veterinarian and the animal's going to have prolonged suffering, that has to be addressed through humane euthanasia, not slaughter.
If it were here, it would be regulated, it would be humane, and they wouldn't have to go through all the stuff that they have to go through anyway, because you're never going to stop it.
Okay, for number one, when it was in the United States, it was not humane. Horses were coming to the slaughterhouse in horrific condition. In later parts of this video, we're going to dive into a kill buyer confessing what he would do to horses. And this was when slaughterhouses were open in the United States. What happens is a horrific thing. And we're also talking about 0.4% of the population. So that's 0.4% of horse owners being responsible. So we're really going to have a industry that's corrupt, the cartels in it, tons of criminal activities just for 0.4% of the horse population owners to have an option for when their horse breaks their leg, they can dump it in the slaughter pipeline. That's ridiculous.
Until you're able to control the population in some sort of way, which you can't. You can't tell your neighbor he needs to geld a stallion and he can't breed a whole field of mares. You can't.
Okay, again, that's 0.4% of the horse population being sent to slaughter. So that's not like 20 years ago when there was like 200,000 horses and all these horses being exported into the slaughter pipeline. People have become educated. People don't want their horses being slaughtered. And what industry says you can injure an animal and then dump it for prolonged amounts of time into a slaughter pipeline where the drug cartels are using them and human smuggling's going on? It is ridiculous.
And I know this is going to hurt a lot of people's feelings to hear the reality, but let me know what you think.
What do I think? Well, I think there needs to be more rescues out there that are responsibly rescuing horses regardless of their condition. And if they are suffering, those horses are humanely euthanized. If there's a chronic medical condition, if there's actually a behavioral problem that makes that horse dangerous to itself or others in accordance with the AAP guidelines, that's what needs to happen. But let's hear what Clint Anderson has to say.
I think she's 100% correct. Okay. I remember talking about this subject, it must have been at least 15 years ago. I can't remember the year they banned horse slaughter in the United States.
Well, he's wrong. Horse slaughter has never been banned in the United States. That's why we're fighting on a legislative level to end horse slaughter.
I was very vocal about it, and did I get run under the I lost a lot of money over it, a lot of customers over it. I mean, people got because I was against it. Now, I'm very much for humane horse slaughter, humane processing.
On a commercial level, horse slaughter is not humane. Horse rescues that offer humane euthanasia, that is actually humane. But what he's talking about, that will never be humane.
Very much for that. But I said to people, when you take this away, this is going to be a disaster. And guess what happened? For the next 4 years after they banned horse slaughter, more horses suffered in the United States than I'd ever seen before in history. Do you remember when they were tying horses up to horse trailers at sales? They were abandoning horses in fields. They were abandoning them on the side of the road. Do you remember that whole? Because I sure do.
He's wrong there again. I distinctly remember one of my earliest memories was a horse that somebody didn't want, and they literally tied it alongside a creek where it couldn't reach the water. And I remember driving past, and the horse was standing there. And then we came back days later, and the horse had died, thirsted to death. And it was just a horrific thing. And I remember watching it go from a horse to a skeleton as like I was 3, 4 years old. Talking to the neighbors, they're like, oh, they didn't want that horse. They could have taken it to auction. They could have sold it for slaughter. There was slaughterhouses all over the place when I was a kid. When the slaughterhouses were shut down, they were shut down because they weren't following regulations. It was a huge issue, and there was a huge amount of horse abuse going on within the horse slaughter pipeline. So it's not something that if we had it in the United States, it would be better. It's horrific no matter which way you go about it, and that's why it needs to end.
I sure remember that. The whole bottom of the market completely dropped out. See, these idiot tree huggers, they thought that if you banned horse slaughter, that people would humanely put their horses to sleep, but they didn't need them.
Tree huggers are usually worried about trees. I've been doing this for over 2 decades, never really had any tree huggers coming around saying what needs to happen. So I think he's wrong there. I do know that horse owners have become more responsible and horses are being euthanized over going to slaughter.
Or they would let them retire out in their backyard until they got to 35 and naturally died. I'm sorry, you put way too much faith in humanity. That's never going to happen. Now, yeah, my older horses, they live on my ranch till they naturally die. A lot of people I know do that. But just because I do it doesn't mean anybody else is going to do it. Here's what I think is funny. She had a very good point there. There is hundreds of thousands of cats and dogs that are euthanized every single year. Hundreds of thousands of cats and dogs that are put down at shelters after they don't get adopted.
With dogs and cat shelters, there's a movement right now that's literally encouraging animal shelters to turn dogs away so they don't have a euthanasia rate. And the dogs that are getting turned away, they're being hit on the road. Coyotes are eating them. Their life is horrific. They're also breeding, having more puppies, making a bigger issue. So I do appreciate him bringing up the dog and cat issue. But the dog and cat issue needs a lot of help right now. We need spay-neuter clinics. But what's happening in the dog and cat world is there are people out there trying to fix the issue and trying to advocate for the right things. It seems like in the horse world, nobody's advocating for the right things. Nobody's saying, hey, let's support these organizations out there that are doing humane euthanasia for horses. No, they just jump immediately to, we need horse slaughter. That's what we need.
Imagine if we stopped that. If they weren't allowed to put down dogs or cats that are unwanted, what do you think would happen? We would be literally overrun with cats and dogs in the world, in America. So usually cats and dogs are more of a companion pet. There's a lot more emotion typically involved in them.
You don't really see people advocating for dog or cat slaughter. It's humane euthanasia. Why aren't we advocating as a society for humane euthanasia for horses instead of horse slaughter? The AVMA has proven that their meat is toxic because they're given drugs not intended for animals for human consumption. So I don't get it.
But horse slaughter, they don't want to even talk about that. So now what they did, they banned it.
Okay, he's rattling off again about banning horse slaughter and that it was banned. It was not banned in the United States. It was completely defunded. They just weren't good business people operating horse slaughter plants. Imagine that.
So now, It didn't stop people sending horses off to be processed. Now they either go to Mexico or they sit on a trailer for 4 days and go to Canada. Real humane that is, sitting on a truck for 4 days going to Canada.
And again, this just shows ignorance. People don't understand that horses go to Canada or Mexico, depending on where they're at in the United States. A horse can be in Texas and go to slaughter in Canada. And even when the slaughterhouses were open in the United States, horses were going to Canada and Mexico for slaughter. Consider that they're using the horse slaughter pipeline with the cartels for moving drugs and humans. It makes sense that they have to move horses across the United States back and forth because they have to have their Trojan horse.
Now, Mexico, what kind of processing, what kind of rules and regulations do you think they got down in Mexico? Come on now, let's think this through just a little bit. Do you think they're going to be real humane down there in Mexico with their plants? At least if it was done here in America, they could have it government regulated, have vets on call, vets on staff, just like the meat industry, heavily regulated. I'd be all for that.
That's not going to happen because the USDA is not going to inspect toxic animals. And the AVMA has proven that horse meat is toxic. They're not going to be inspecting animals, especially 0.4% of a population of an animal for slaughter. That's a huge waste of government resources.
But no, the stupid tree huggers, they took it all away. Okay? So, and again, she had another point. You can't stop people from breeding. It's called a human right. You get to do what you want to do. I think there's stupid people out there, humans that shouldn't be breeding either, but they are. The dumb and the stupid and ignorant are having kids at record prices, record numbers right now. You ever notice that? The dumb and the stupid and ignorant knocking out 4 kids, 5 kids, 6 kids. Government's paying for all of them. We're not breeding the smartest of our race anymore. The dumbest are getting to breed the best numbers. Okay? So you could play the argument, go get a shelter horse, go get a Mustang. You know, but you're never going to control people because we get to do what we want to do with them.
The fact that he's discouraging people from rescuing horses or adopting Mustangs, pretty despicable. There are amazing horses at rescues. There are amazing Mustangs out there that are getting adopted and living amazing lives and performing and doing all kinds of disciplines. Don't like that he's discouraging people from adopting. The point that people can do whatever they want with their horses is not true. If you starve your horses in the United States, there are laws that you can be prosecuted. You will go to jail if you're documented starving and neglecting a horse, basically, unless you're in the slaughter pipeline. Because if you're in the slaughter pipeline, apparently they can get away with anything because they're like, oh, I just got this horse. It was in this condition, blah, blah, blah. Lies, lies, lies.
Now, in a perfect world, everybody takes care of the horse till it naturally dies.
I do not believe that a natural death for a horse is often the kindest option. I've seen horses suffer tremendously and die of dehydration days later after not being able to get up. On some of these cases we've done, it's much better to say goodbye to your horse on a good day.
If somebody doesn't want a horse, they probably don't want to spend $500 to $1,000 having it put down, paying somebody to come and dig a hole, burying the horse, and humanely taking care of it. That's probably on average what it about cost if you don't live on a farm, to have it put down, hole dug, backhoe out, roughly probably at least $500 to $1,000.
That's only like a month of board. So if you've had a horse for 5 years and you've been boarding it and you're not going to spend $500 or so to have your horse humanely euthanized, that's literally like a month of board, maybe a couple months at most, to do right by your horse. Why wouldn't you do that?
So if they don't want it, they probably don't want to spend that money on it either. You can criticize them, you can shame them, you can call them out, but it's not going to stop people from doing it. Okay? So it's very, very sad that they were naive enough to think that we live in a perfect world where banning this shit was going to make it better for horses. It made it way worse. Now, they still go to the horse slaughter, except they go to Mexico with no regulations, or they go to Canada and sit on a trailer for 4 days. I bet they have some probably pretty good regulations in Canada. Canada, they regulate out everything up there, okay? But they got to sit on a truck to get 4 days up there. So I really believe you want to save horses from going to the slaughter, don't let them become problem horses. Don't get them to be badly trained horses. I've never seen a really good horse end up at the horse slaughter. I really haven't. A really well-trained horse that was usable, I've never seen them get there. I really haven't. Horses that are badly trained, horses that got a lot of problems, horses that are unsafe, that's where they end up as a general rule.
I agree with Clint in the aspect if you don't want horses to go to slaughter, don't let them be problem horses. Training saves horses' lives. So if you want to make sure your horse is safe, you need to be training that horse. You need to teach it how to ride. You need to teach it how to lead. You need to teach it how to load into a trailer. Those are all things that can keep your horse from falling through the cracks.
The market will always dictate what people breed to. When there's an oversupply, people will back off. When there's an undersupply, people will breed more. It's that simple.
If it's that simple, it should be easy to cut back on the 0.4% of horses that are going to slaughter as far as breeding goes. If they're not a supply and demand type situation, then breeders will stop breeding as many horses so that 20,000 horses won't. I've heard this argument for decades, and it's like it used to be if you cut back 10%, those horses wouldn't be there. We can end this, but it takes responsibility. It takes educating. I'm not one of those people that are like, let's just throw in the towel and we can't do anything. No, we can educate people to do better. And in the last 24 years of operating Horse Plus, I have seen the horse community do better for horses. But it's not going to do better if everyone's just like throwing the towel, we need horse slaughter. That's ridiculous.
Okay? I commend the girl for having enough talk about it. Oh, I talked about it 15 years ago and got crucified to it. I was the only, every other horseman I knew, every other clinician agreed with me, but none of them get out publicly and talk about it. I sure did. It cost me a lot of money, but I was right at the end. Okay, it was horrible what happened. 4 years after they banned horse slaughter, it was horrible what happened to them. Horses were abandoned everywhere.
Clearly, Clint Anderson is pro-slaughter, but the reality is he's not looking at the big picture. He's not looking that horse meat is toxic. He's not looking back in history, which our next episode will be going into a forgotten story that is a real story of what was actually happening to horse owners and horses within the horse slaughter pipeline in our next episode. If you enjoy watching these, please subscribe and don't miss the next episode that will be released in this ongoing effort to expose the horse slaughter pipeline and educate people on the reality of what's actually happening. Don't forget to hit that like button and